Hi, welcome to Starz Recapped. Today, I am going to explain an American fantasy, adventure, and comedy movie titled A Minecraft Movie, which was released in the year 2025. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. At the beginning of the movie, we are shown a child named Steve, who is very fond of digging. But when he goes to the mine to dig, an old man sees him and chases him away because there was a board saying, "Children are not allowed." So, when he grows up, he starts wearing old people's clothes. He used to do a 9-to-5 job in a company. But somewhere in his heart, mining was always there. One day, while he is having his breakfast, he sees the same mine again. And now, when he has grown up, he again goes to the mine to dig. This time, even the old man cannot stop him. While digging, he finds two different things. One is an orb, and the other is an earth crystal. When he combines the two, a new portal opens up. This was the portal to the Overworld. After entering the portal, he saw a colorful world where everything was in the shape of blocks. But the most special thing was the powers he gained after coming into this world. He could do anything here. He could create the world in any way he wanted, building new houses, creating entire buildings from scratch. Along with this, he also sees a wolf dog named Dennis, so he gives him a bone and makes him his friend. And now, the two of them begin making the overworld truly beautiful, like a giant theme park. Their life was happy. There were no problems at all. Then one day, while wandering through the forest, Steve sees another portal, this one incomplete. As soon as he completes it, they are transported to a different realm, a dimension of the overworld known as the Nether. Now, the Nether is ruled by a cunning queen named Malgosia. She is the leader of the piglings. Basically, the job of these dukes, her loyal followers, was to extract gold and destroy the overworld forever, as Malgosia had a backstory tied to it. I'll tell you that part later in the story. As soon as Steve and Dennis appear before Malgosia, she arrests them both. But just before being captured, Steve sends his orb out with Dennis to keep it away from the cunning queen and protect the overworld. Dennis escapes and makes it back home, where he hides the orb under the bed. From here, the story takes a jump, from the year 1979 to the year 2025. And now we are introduced to Jason Momoa, the second lead in this story, also known as Aquaman. As a kid, he had won some really big titles in gaming, and that same childhood obsession with gaming had completely taken over his mind. When he grew up, he opened his own gaming store, named Garrett, the Garbage World Gaming Zone. But just because he loved playing games didn't mean other people did too. That's why his shop wasn't doing well. His expenses kept increasing day by day, and now he had even received an eviction notice. He had to vacate the shop soon. One day, hoping to turn his luck around, he goes to an auction, looking to buy something that might restart his stalled gaming life. Turns out, he ends up buying an entire container. But what really grabs Garrett's attention is when the auctioneer mentions that there's a game called Cosmos inside, from 1979. That's a surprise, because Cosmos was an old Atari game, a kind of hidden gem. If that gem made it to his shop, it could bring prestige and glory. So Garrett buys the container for a high price of $900. But as soon as he opens the box containing Cosmos, all he finds is old garbage. Furious, he yells at the auctioneer. The auctioneer shrugs and says, "Brother, sorry, I didn't open the box to check it." Well, the damage was done. Garrett had lost his money. Disheartened, he starts heading home. But by the time he gets near, his car breaks down, badly. Meanwhile, two children named Natalie and Henry were also arriving in the city. They had no parents and were now trying to start a new life. Natalie had landed a job at a potato chips factory, and the company had also provided her a house to live in. So both Natalie and Henry set out to shift into their new home. There, a company representative named Dawn greets them and hands over the house keys. The two were very happy after moving in. The house was in decent condition. Natalie, a big-time potato lover, would always make potato-based dishes, potato hamburgers, potato pizza, and more. But Henry didn't like any of it. Now today was Henry's first day at school in this new city. Before going, he wanted to buy a game to pass the time. So, he stops by Garrett's gaming store. Garrett greets him. "Hello, kid." Then he asks, "Tell me, kid, what do you want?" Henry replies, "Today's my first day in this city and in this school. It'd be fun if I could get a good game or something." But instead of giving him a game, Garrett, who was starving, grabs Henry's potato pizza. Later, at school, Henry meets the principal, who had recently gone through a divorce. She says to him, "This school will be perfect for you. It's been a while since we had new admissions, and you're the only one who has come in. So, you're very special to us. We'll treat you better." Then comes his first class, where one of his teachers, Mr. Gunchy, places a banana and an orange on the table and says, "This is a life painting. Make a drawing of it." So everyone starts drawing it according to their own understanding. But our creative Mr. Henry, who has a great interest in robotics, engineering, and jetpacks, decides to draw something different. He makes a jetpack using the banana as inspiration. Mr. Gunchy comes over and yells at him, "If you're so smart, why don't you make a real jetpack?" So, Henry uses all his brain power and actually creates a working jetpack. But just before he can fully test it, one of his classmates secretly cuts a wire. Although Henry manages to take off, the controls malfunction due to the cut wire, and the jetpack crashes right into a potato chip factory. Because of the crash, his sister suffers a significant loss at her workplace. Now the principal is furious. She shouts at Henry, "You've caused a lot of damage. Even the other children were affected. Go and call your guardian." Henry doesn't have a guardian. So he calls Garrett and says, "Come to school as my guardian, pretend to be my father, handle the principal for me." Garrett refuses. "Shit. I'm not going to do your job." But then Henry says, "I have $26. And with that, Garrett quickly grabs his shiny car and drives straight to the school. Surprisingly, the principal is completely taken aback by Garrett's confidence, and, somewhere deep down, she even seems a little interested in going on a date with him. But both of them walk away without taking things further. Now Garrett may have saved Henry's skin, but he gives him a harsh lecture in return. Later, while exploring Garrett's store, Henry discovers the same orb and earth crystal. As soon as he combines them, a strange power begins pulling Henry toward the mine. So, Henry sets off, heading straight to the mine with the earth crystal in hand. By this time, it's already too late. Natalie starts to worry. Her brother has gone missing. A new city, a new school. Had he gotten lost? Then Dawn steps in and says, "I had turned on the tracking system in his mobile. You can track him." Meanwhile, Henry and Garrett have already ended up at the mine, drawn there by the orb. Natalie and Dawn follow them using the tracking system, hoping to bring Henry back. But just then, the orb comes into contact with the portal, and it activates. All four of them are suddenly pulled into the portal and arrive in the Overworld. Once in the Overworld, they see the same colorful world, populated by all kinds of blocky, fantastical creatures. Nitwet, Dennis, Chicken Jockey, Emerald Pearl, Cougars, and many more. But the news of their presence in the Overworld had already reached Malgosia. So Malgosia, the Queen of the Dukes, sends her loyal dukes on a mission to retrieve the orb. On the other hand, when the portal opens, a Minecraft creature named Nitwit ends up arriving on Earth. Now, while these four, Henry, Garrett, Natalie, and Dawn, are wondering, how will we get out of here? What is this place? What's special about it? Is there any danger? A new threat appears. All the pigs sent by Malgosia, also known as piglings, arrive in the Overworld. These piglings transform into zombies the moment they enter this different dimension of the Overworld. As soon as the zombie piglings begin their attack, something strange happens. Just like when Steve first arrived and gained powers that allowed him to create anything, Henry now begins to feel those same powers awaken within him. The first thing he does? He builds a tall tower to protect everyone. But by the time the tower is up, it's already too late. The attacks intensify, and there seems to be no one left to save them. Just then, Steve appears, arriving just in time to save their lives. And who would have thought? As soon as morning comes, the zombies are hit by a fire blast from the sunlight, and they vanish completely. Grateful, they all turn to Steve and say, "Thank you for saving our lives," to which Steve responds, "I don't want your thanks. I want my orb." But the clever Garrett holds on to the orb and says, "Look, the thing is, I want a lot of golden jewels. You've built so much here. I'm broke on Earth, so I need all these things." But Steve says, "I'll tell you where the orb is. If you help me rescue Dennis from Malgosia." Dennis, his loyal wolf dog, was being held captive by Malgosia. Garrett agrees without hesitation. So, all of them set out on a mission to save Dennis. But in order to fight a war against Malgosia, they needed weapons, lots of them. They head to a nearby village called Midport. Now, inside this village, there were all sorts of unusual things. People cooking chicken over lava, crafting strange weapons, and building various mechanical devices. Giant crushers clanked away in the background. Meanwhile, Malgotia had summoned her general, Blazerock, a creature that looked adorable but was actually very dangerous. While Blazerock was preparing for battle, the 5 heroes, Steve, Garrett, Henry, Natalie, and Dawn, began working together in Midport to forge their weapons. Everyone pitched in, using their minds and creativity to build something powerful enough to face Malgotia. During this, Garrett gets his hands on the Emerald Pearl. Steve explains, "This ball is special. Wherever you throw it, it will teleport you straight to that place." Garrett, being Garrett, immediately throws it backward, and boom, he's instantly transported back to where he tossed it. Meanwhile, the group continues building their weapons. Steve forges a powerful sword. Garrett, trying to show off, laughs and says, "Stop, stop, I make great things." But despite his confidence, he accidentally crafts an iron bucket. Then Henry steps in and uses his tech-savvy brain to create a potato gun, one that launches massive potato blasts. As they complete their preparations, General Blazerock arrives with his entire army. A massive battle erupts. The group splits into 2 teams, one made up of Natalie and Dawn, and the other with Steve, Garrett, and Henry. In the heat of the battle, Steve straps on a jetpack and shouts, "We have to get to the Bluestone Mine, on the other side of that hill." With that, they take flight and head straight for the Bluestone Mine. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Nitwit, the Minecraft creature who had slipped through the portal, collides with a car. And who was driving the car? None other than Principal Ma'am. So she says, "Sorry I hurt you, but why is your head so big? Anyway, how about having a nice dinner?" Meanwhile, back in the Overworld, Garrett turns to Steve and asks, "Dude, why is Malgotia so dangerous? Why does she even want to harm us?" Steve replies, "Malgotia was once a great dancer. Her moves were so killer, so sexy, that the people of the Nether couldn't even understand her. They just weren't mature enough to handle her creativity. In a way, her entire spirit of creation was crushed. Since then, Malgotia decided to abandon all forms of creativity. Now, her mission is to destroy anything that's beautiful and creative, especially in the Overworld. And now, because General Blazerock failed his mission, the Cunning Queen grows furious. She calls upon another one of her dangerous allies, her trap specialist. This new threat is named the Great Havoc, or perhaps better known as Great Hawk. This thing was massive. It had no brain of its own. But the Cunning Queen had installed one, making it even more dangerous. The scene shifts to the other team, Natalie and Dawn. It was nighttime. Both were exhausted after battling hordes of zombies, when suddenly a wolf dog appears from the shadows. Natalie is startled, but Dawn calms her. "We can handle it." And when she offers the dog a big bone lying nearby, they realize it's Dennis. Yes, Dennis, the very one they had been trying to rescue from the Cunning Queen. Now that Dennis was with them, their next mission was to reunite with Steve and Henry. Steve, as we know, had gone to the Bluestone Mine with Garrett. This mine was rich with diamonds and jewels, exactly what Garrett was craving. But before Garrett could loot all the stones, the Great Hawk arrives. To escape, they jump into a garari, basically a roller coaster-style minecart, and try to flee. However, the redstone signals needed to power the cart weren't activating. So Garrett, groaning in frustration, gets down to push it manually. Right then, the Great Hawk charges toward them. Thinking quickly, Steve turns to Henry and says, "Slap the creepers here, they'll activate." Henry smacks the creepers, and just like that, they begin glowing green. Seconds later, they erupt in a massive explosion, trapping the Great Hawk inside the mine. The blast allows Steve, Garrett, and Henry to escape with their lives. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Principal Ma'am is now seated in a fancy fine dining restaurant, having dinner with none other than Nitwit. And somewhere along the way, she too had fallen in love with Nitwit. Back in the Overworld, Steve looked serious. "Look, these Cunning Queen's pigs won't stop chasing us. We have to open a new portal with another Earth crystal and get out of here." The previous Earth crystal, the one that had activated the portal when combined with the orb, had been shattered during the last battle. But there was still one more Earth crystal, somewhere deep in the Overworld. The only problem? It was hidden inside the woodland. Now, woodland wasn't just a forest, it was a towering 3-story fortress. On the first floor lived Axe Marg, a brute with a giant blade. On the second floor lurked the Brain Blasters, notorious for tearing apart minds with puzzles and illusions. And on the third floor resided the Emerald Man, whose eyes could scramble your thoughts just by locking gaze with him. "How are we even supposed to get past all that?" Steve asked, half to himself. That's when Garrett, the garbage man with garbage ideas, raised a finger and said, "What if we distract them by dancing and singing? While they're watching us, Henry can sneak up and get the Earth crystal. Strangely enough, everyone agreed, and so the plan went into motion. They began dancing, cracking jokes, and putting on the most ridiculous performance imaginable. Garrett even threw in a few garbage-themed dance moves. Meanwhile, Henry quietly made his way up. He passed the first level, dodging Axemarg by slipping behind crates. On the second floor, he crept past the brain blasters, resisting their taunts and riddles. Then, just as he was sneaking toward the third level, the distraction began to fall apart. The performers, Garrett and Steve, weren't as entertaining as they'd hoped. Their goofy routine annoyed the Woodland residents, who grabbed both of them and tossed them into an arena ring. "And now, our new challengers," someone shouted. "Garrett and Steve versus the chicken jockey." The crowd roared as a zombie riding a chicken waddled into the ring. It was bizarre. It wasn't a traditional enemy, but it was fast, unpredictable, and weirdly powerful. A wild fight broke out between them. Punches flying, feathers in the air, and the zombie clinging to its bird like a rodeo champ. Meanwhile, up on the third floor, Henry reached the Earth crystal. But just as he picked it up, the Emerald Man appeared out of the shadows. And in a split-second mistake, Henry looked directly into his eyes. His thoughts began to swirl. His mind went haywire. Inside his mind, Henry saw terrible visions, twisted reflections of people he once trusted, shouting at him, "You are worthless. You can't do anything properly. All your experiments are futile. You're a fool and not worthy of friendship." But then somehow Henry steadied himself. With a deep breath, he closed his eyes, gripped the sword in his hand, and struck blindly. The blade connected. The Emerald Man let out a piercing scream and, in a flash of light, transformed into the Amber Ball, a powerful artifact known for its teleportation abilities. Meanwhile, on the first floor, chaos reigned. The arena fight raged on, but through sheer determination and teamwork, Steve and Garrett managed to defeat their bizarre opponents and escape the ring. However, things were far from over. By now, the cunning Queen Malgotia and her army of piglings had arrived. Garrett glanced at his friends and said with a grin, "Guys, you go ahead. I'll take care of these porky pals." Without waiting for an answer, he turned back, ready to face the approaching horde. A massive blast shook the ground. Though they managed to survive, the others were knocked unconscious from the explosion. Thankfully, their loyal dog Dennis sniffed them out, dragging them one by one to Natalie and Dawn, who were still nearby. They were safe, for now, but not all news was good. In the confusion, Malgotia had seized both the orb and the Earth crystal. With both powerful items in her possession, she opened a new portal, one not of escape, but of destruction. Darkness spilled into the overworld, spreading like a plague across the vibrant landscape. The end had begun. All of Malgosia's piglings were transforming into zombies, preparing to launch a brutal attack. That's when Steve got an idea. He began rallying his team, crafting new weapons, and developing fresh strategies to fight the oncoming war. The plan was clear. Somehow they had to retrieve the orb. If they could hold on until morning, the sunlight would burn all the zombies to ashes. And so began the epic final battle. Malgotia summoned her fiercest warrior, Mr. the Great Hawk. But just then, a new hero from the midworld arrived to face him. This mysterious figure wore flying super shoes and with one powerful move, shattered the Great Hawk's skull, sending the beast crashing to the ground. Meanwhile, Steve appeared, now clad in his radiant bluestone suit, and confronted Malgotia directly. He stepped forward and declared, "Your reign is over. Go back to your world." Though Malgotia had clearly been defeated, she still had tricks up her sleeve. As Steve turned, she lunged, attempting to stab him in the back, but Steve had seen it coming. With quick reflexes, he blocked the attack, turning the tables one final time. Her sinister plan unraveled before her eyes, and with a surge of energy, she was cast back into the nether. Steve knelt and hugged his dog Dennis tightly, finally reunited. Now, with his promise fulfilled, it was time for the others to return to Earth. As they prepared to leave, Garrett spoke up, "I don't really have any friends my age on Earth, but if you guys came with me, life would be a whole lot more fun." Natalie smiled and added, "The magic you spread here in the Overworld, if you brought that to Earth too, it'd be amazing." Steve paused, thinking it over, and then with a grin he said, "All right. It's been a while since I've been to Earth anyway." And so together they all stepped through the portal, back to Earth, ready to begin a brand new adventure. So, Steve sets out on a journey to find meaning. After arriving on Earth, they decide to create their own gaming zone, naming it Game Overworld. In this new venture, Steve develops a revolutionary digital game called Lock City. After playing it, the entire city becomes completely mesmerized. Life begins to fall into place for everyone. Garrett starts making money, Steve's creativity is finally paying off, and Henry is now attending school, zooming around in his jetpack. And with that, the movie wraps up with a happy ending. That's my explanation of the movie, a Minecraft movie. So guys, what do you think of the movie? Write your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.